Marc Iacona is the president and CEO of Simcona Electronics, a family-owned and operated electronics manufacturing service company headquartered in Rochester, New York. Marc is also the executive director and co-producer of one of the city's most iconic events, the Rochester International Jazz Festival. I'm going to leave it at that for the intro because this man really doesn't need any introduction. Marc, thank you so much for being here, man.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. So I just want to really jump right into it for the people listening. I want to start kind of with your journey with Simcona, and then we'll kind of move into the Jazz Fest stuff. Talk about the beginnings of the company and how it all started. I know, was it your father that started it with the partner?
Yeah, it was a very, very unique. I think it was the stars aligned for these two individuals. I don't believe in coincidences, right? So out of the gate, I think these two guys were meant to be brought together to do something unique in the town that they're from, well, chose to live in. My father was from Buffalo, New York. He was one of three boys, the oldest, and his father brought his mother over 10 years after coming from Sicily. And then they started a family, and then when my dad was 9 years old, his father passed away.
Oh, wow.
So left his mother, who spoke no English, with three boys, less than 10 years old. And I think that's what really started to mold my father into the person who he is today. He's actually turning 100 in July.
No shit.
Sharp as a tack, so
Wow.
it keeps me on my toes. And being homeless, he was homeless. They were basically homeless, the four of them, for several years. And the stories that he tells as we all got older so that we could actually have the stories marinate in our minds versus hear a story and not really understand what that meant.
Yeah.
Wise man, he chose to start to share things about his experience as a young man, being an Italian, first generation here, but the things that are going on today, not to get too deep, the way he was treated, and his ethnicity was treated is no similar to some of the things that are going on today.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different subject that I wish more and more of the centennials or some of the people that are less than being 100 that are still around could share those stories with some of us in the United States to understand some of the things that they also went through and worked through. But the way that we were all brought up was to never put ourselves above anybody and always give back and have that aspiration to affect somebody's life in a positive way. So he was in a multitude of different types of jobs, and one of them found himself working for an electrical distributor here in Rochester that is no longer in existence, but he was calling on Simon Brightman, who was an engineer at Bausch & Lomb. Simon's story, who was about 5 years younger than my father, who has since passed, his story was he was a concentration camp survivor from Auschwitz.
Oh, wow.
So the stories that he had, what he told and shared, were basically these guys were kindred spirits in different ways because he hid under dead bodies. Those are the people that don't believe that the Holocaust actually happened. When you talk to somebody who's survived it and lived it and watched his family members,
It's crazy.
things happen to them and then hide under bodies that had passed away to stay warm and stay away from getting caught. So the two of them came together as one was a customer and my father was a salesperson calling on Simon. And then they had the idea of let's get together and why don't we start a business?
Start a company, yeah.
So Simon Brightman, Lou Iacona, Simcona Electronics is how it was born. And it was started in the year I was conceived. So in 1962 is when the two of them got together and started their business right down here in Rochester, New York on Joseph Avenue. And it decided as the business grew to find larger piece of property and to be able to invest in it. And then as the business grew, they were hiring more people, which finds our residency now, which is on Mount Reed Boulevard. They're right off the expressway in the city.
Yep. Love it. And I know there's a lot in between now and then.
A heck of a lot, yeah.
So for sake of time, I want to kind of fast forward to, I believe I saw it was 2011 when you took full ownership of Simcona. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was, again, I'm blessed. And again, I think things happen for a reason where you have your journey in life and the seasons in life. When Cy and Lou were gracious enough to allow three of us at the time, Simon's daughter Blanche, as well as my brother-in-law Angelo. The three of us had been working at Simcona for several years, and then in 1998, we had purchased the company from them, ran the business together for a little bit more than 10 years, and then in 2011, we again, the same kind of segue. It was a very nice, amicable segue, the same way we did with the founders. In 2011, I bought 100% of the company.
So take yourself back to 2011 and receiving full ownership of Simcona. Number one, what did that feel like? And number two, what advice would you give maybe entrepreneurs in the same situation who are either acquiring a business for themselves and all of a sudden they have this ship to run? What insights can you give our audience on that?
And again, this is just my opinion from mentors that were in and out of my life, still some of them. So it's more of coming from me. This is not the silver bullet. I would have to say the thing that I associate it most with, which is my other life, which is in music, and being involved in the jazz festivals. Jazz is, when somebody says, what is jazz? And to me, it's creative, improvised music, as my business partner would say. But I also look at it as it's something, it's an activity that has form, because there's a melody to every song. And then there has freedom to it. And that's the dialogue between the musicians, which they call improvisation or the solos. And then you always come back to the form, and that's the melody. So there's freedom and there's form in the music, and especially the music and the dialogue of jazz, which transcends into other music as well. I equate that the same thing as in 2011. There was a sense of freedom, and not in a bad way. Oh my man, I had two other partners, but it was more of, okay, you have this freedom, but there's form to the business that you don't want to mess with the building blocks and the foundation of what has been built since the founders and the former partners that I had. We always had dialogue. We didn't always agree, but that's the beautiful part about a business. If you agree on everything, I'm pretty sure what happened is inertia, and you sit still and you're afraid of your own shadow. Mm-hmm. So you need to push each other, and the same thing has to happen is you need to push yourself and surround yourself with the right people that have the same kindred spirit of you, even if they're not owners, but if you've invested in them, they care about driving the business and growing the business. So to me, there was that foundation, but there was freedom for me to be able to improvise and realize that I'm still affecting people's lives in my business. If I start to improvise and grow the business in different ways, I'm responsible for them. But now it's the freedom is on me, because I don't have the two other partners to rely on anymore to either keep me in check, right, or support me. That can be a little scary, but that's why you have mentors. So part of my advice is almost because of through association and through experiences, your mindset is your most important asset, right? So if you have the right mindset, then you have to, which I didn't make up, if you go out there and you really associate yourself enough with learning, you'll see that there's a common theme to most successful entrepreneurs or people that are working at a business and successful in their own vocation.
100%.
So with that mindset, knowing where I wanted to go and where I wanted to take it, how do I surround myself with people that may know more than me, may not know more than me in experience, but have the same passion to get there, realizing that we're going to fall down along the way. It's how fast we pick ourselves up, because you've got, in the business that I'm in at Simcona, you have a supply stream and you have a customer base. And then you have your environment that you work in with your team. You need them all, right? So the mindset, surrounding yourself with the right people. I don't believe in a destination. I believe journeys on the way to waypoints to where you want to go. Because once you get to the destination, and that's what happens with many entrepreneurs, once they finish and they do something or they retire, there's a relevancy concern that they have, and how do you deal with that?
Your identity,
And to me, someone once told me, this is a muscle. The brain is a muscle. Why would you stop working out with the brain? Now, some of us choose as we get along in our career to say, I know what my sweet spot is. I know where I'm the most happy, if you want to use that term, but fulfilled. And I think at a certain point in time in your career or your life, you look and you start to prioritize and say, I thought that was the most important at the time. And now I'm here. I still want to be involved in things. However, I need to tweak some things because I need to start stepping back and looking at all of the wonderful things that have happened along the way and who's helped me do that. And at the same time, in the present, that I might not have this opportunity to be able to talk to you and have this conversation again. So to me, this isn't a transaction. This is more of, we have an opportunity to have dialogue here. And there's certain things that happen in a person's life along the way that are life-changing, whether their health, whether there's somebody in their life has come and gone that has affected them in a positive way. So to me, that's happened along this whole way since 2011, up until literally this year, where there's things happening in my life that I have to step back and say, am I doing all that I can in order to really enjoy what's going on here? And I mean here, right? And I don't mean the universe. I mean this place where I live. And, having a faith has a lot to do with that. I'm not the type that goes and pushes my faith, but if somebody ever wants to talk about it, I'll tell them why I'm collective in what I am and confident where I'm going. But as long as I'm here, how am I interacting with people to never put myself above anyone like my parents raised me?
Yeah.
Right? And how am I making a difference? And that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
And you have to step back, and as you grow, it really starts to affect the business that you're in, your life, and the people around you. So really getting back to the question is to say, when you make that move to do something on your own, who are you bringing along with you that shares that same passion, but may not have the energy inside themselves or the mindset to be able to say, I don't think I can take this on my own, but I want to be following somebody along with somebody that maybe I can learn and then go do something on my own. The biggest compliment to me, and I tell the people that I work with, is that if someone is with us for 5 years and they come in one day and say, I'm moving on, but this is why I'm moving on, you need to be happy for them.
You're pumped from, yeah.
Because the reason why they're moving on is maybe we can't get to them to the place that they want to at our location because we're at a certain level in our business. However, how much better did they make our business for those 5 years? So when they move on, did they have a positive effect so that when we're replacing them or finding their replacement, there's already this basis and this foundation of what they've done so that whoever steps in with the same kind of personality, they're attracted to our company.
Yep.
Right? So to me, it's a journey. And getting back to it, since 2011 to now, I've had some ups, some downs. But for the most part, it's always been along the way and just one step backward, 2 steps backwards, 1 step forward, 3 steps forward.
Yeah.
And having that mindset that things happen for a reason.
Yep.
I'm sure you guys have heard before, life is, 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it and move on. So, and I've been very fortunate to have people coming in and out of my life for seasons, whether they're a year, whether they're 10 years, that have helped me grow. I don't discount that.
I mean, I'd love to kind of dive into, that's sort of a great overview of how you got to where you are and some of the stuff. So let's kind of go back a little bit into the mindset stuff, right? This is something that I'm super passionate about as I've, continued to take over the team from Cam and just continue to work together. You talk about faith being a big aspect for you and those underlying principles, right? I think one of the core principles in our faith is that you are there to serve others, right? So as much as being a leader is about you kind of presenting yourself and making sure that the company's well driven, like you said, you need to make sure that the people that are working with you, that are following along with you, you're serving them, right? You're helping them grow and get to where they want to be. So my question is, when you've kind of had these moments of, well, I need to be everything for everyone, how do you sort of serve your team members as well, not just have them serve you?
I use a phrase, and I don't know where I learned it. I don't believe I made this up or came up with this.
You did, yeah. Take credit. Come on.
No, I can't. I will when I can, but I always say, take yourself out of the parade and look down in. And, if you've ever been to the Macy's Day Parade, it doesn't go from A to B and finish at a location, straight linear line.
Right.
It's left, it's right, it's up, it's over, right? But if you've never been in that parade, you're trusting everybody else that's in the parade that is done, so you're going to end up at the right place. But sometimes you need to take yourself out of the parade to see where you're at on that journey to where you're going to go. That's how I work with my team. If I didn't have mentors along the way, if I wasn't part of some professional groups that are CEOs, presidents of organizations that we meet monthly, I would have made decisions, and they probably would have decisions that either financially or emotionally and physically and mentally messed with me much more than they would have if I didn't have these mentors in these organizations. Mm-hmm. So I've taken what I've learned there and shared that with my leadership team. The other thing is I've always cared about anyone that's helping me along the way.
Yeah.
And I also learned from one of my mentors is, and I know it's tough to do, but servant mentality, serving part isn't hard for me. But what also always came easy to me was, and I don't know why, and I think it's just, it can be innate in you, but just like any talent or skill or gift can be innate, some people can pull it out of you,
Yep.
right? Giving has always been, and giving, knowing that
Without
not
expectation.
expecting it,
Yeah.
but it seems to come back truly sevenfold, and it's crazy how it happens. And I try to do that at work. I try to, the biggest compliment I ever got was, we got into manufacturing really big time about, let's call it 3.5 years ago, but I really started back in 2015. And I was a novice at it. It was, to give you the example, I knew I could fly a turbo prop, right, the analogy, but I knew we needed a jet, a Lear, to get to where we're going. I don't fly Lears. I need to find someone that can fly it. I can tell them where we're going. That's what happened with the manufacturing and how I wanted to diversify. So I started to surround myself with those individuals. But the biggest compliment I got, and these are things that have to come natural and can't be manufactured. In the beginning, if you know the right thing to do, sometimes it feels awkward and you have to work yourself into it. But one of the things that I've always enjoyed or felt gifted at is to go out and talk to anyone in my company and actually have to remind them, can you stop looking at me like the CEO and look at me like I'm literally your counterpart. I understand out of respect, but when we started the manufacturing, some of the biggest compliments that I had when we had some dialogue and had an event where individuals would come up to me that are, the people that are building some of our solutions, it's not like putting two blocks together and a screw and that's it. They're reading some prints. What we're doing is manufacturing electronic control panels for automation, AI related things, power, storage related power management. Where these individuals come up and say, I just want to let you know you're the first person that I've actually ever worked for or at the company where the CEO comes out and talks to us and actually just doesn't say hi and keep walking by. Now, the reason I don't stop and talk to them a long time, I don't want to be the one making them make a mistake, right? But
that's a crazy thing that it's so
genuine.
Foreign. Yeah.
And I was shocked, but then I went, wait a second, take it as a compliment. I was like, wow, you mean owners don't do that, So I'm sure there are several business owners that do that, but just to hear that says, okay, you know what? People do take notice of that, and I don't go out there to make myself feel good. I go out there to say, you guys are important. The team that's out here is just as important as the job that I have. I may have a burden of financially having all the risk. And at night, is one of the reasons I tell everybody, I used to sleep like a baby. I go to fall asleep really early, but wake up crying at 2 a.m. because I have no idea why I'm afraid. But, knowing that you have that kind of observation from individuals that you work with, nobody works for me. Everybody works with me.
Love that.
And if they choose to stay, that's awesome. But if they choose to leave, and not everything's perfect all the time, that's why you rely on your management team, your middle management team, to be able to convey your passion, right? Mm-hmm. What is our why, right? And that type of thing, not to coin that, but what is the reason that we're walking through the front door every day? Not to make each other miserable, right? It's like at the end of the day, why are we here? The service level that we're bringing to the community base of our customers has a huge effect. Mm-hmm. That mindset all the way through the company.
Yep.
So that's kind of what's been driving me and how I work with my team. So when there's tough times, okay, how did we get here? We're going to get out of it. We may or may not like the most recent result that's going to happen from it, but I also always say, it's not what we're doing wrong. Let's look at what we're not doing. So you can focus on all the things you're doing wrong, right? But what is it that we're not doing in order for us to grow, in order for us to get that piece of business, or to have people come and work at our company and want to come and work at our company?
Right.
Right on. Yeah. And I'm just nodding my head over here because we can relate to this so much. I think, Carter, just going through some tough times recently that we've been through and making it out on the other end, but just having faith in each other to find our way. The one point that you made that I want to emphasize even more is the point about being okay with people leaving your company. Because I think a lot of people say that. They're like, yeah, I'm okay with building people up, but if they leave, that's cool. But actually practicing that and being happy for them if they do decide to part ways, that takes a special person to be able to do that.
And you want to know something? I appreciate you saying that. It's not rocket science, and it's really about meaning what you say. And the more you do it, it's crazy how it comes back to you. Some of the individuals end up going into another business that can help your business. They end up coming back into the industry. They end up starting their own business. They remember the dialogue that was said, and also it's a small world, right? It can get out there where they leave. You say all the nice things, and when they're gone, certain people are saying things, and they're like, "You don't think that I know about that?" So I always am cognizant of that to say, if a person's moving on, I hope it's part of it is I had some kind of positive influence for them to grow.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
I was never offended. I'll never forget it. Before I owned the company or anything, he ended up going into real estate. I won't say his last name, but his first name was Jonathan. I said, "So what is it? What do you want to do here?" Because I was interviewing for an inside sales position for him. He said, "I want your job." I said, "Oh, that's cool." I said, "I'm not going anywhere, but tell me why you want my job," right? And the more I let him talk, the more I was like, he's basically saying, I want to start here in the company. I want to go to here. And technically, he actually wanted to be the president of the company. I looked at that and said, there's somebody that is thinking that. But now there's nothing against saying, I want to come in and I want to go to this sweet spot of what I like. I'm going to do my job 100%. I'm going to do the best of my ability. I'm going to make everybody proud that I'm here. The company does great, but this is all I wanted. This is what I want to do. Now, there's a reason certain people say that, because they've been through something before. They have something else going on, meaning, how do I know they're not a musician or an actor on the side and they're trying to do some stuff and this is what's paying the bills, and they have an opportunity to explore their talent. So I look at things totally differently versus, well, that's a person that just doesn't want to move on with they want to build off their life. So why would we want to hire a person like a timeout? Everybody's different.
Yeah.
What do we need? We know what they're looking for, but what do we need does it fit our organization, our culture? Would I take superstars? Absolutely. However, I'd rather have people that are hitting triples, home runs, versus getting up and they're a man or a woman on an island because they're a superstar, and then they can't excel because they're in an environment where they need other superstars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want everybody to try to go to here. I'm also not a guy that says, what have you done for me lately? I am a guy that does say, do we know what your expectations are? Have we set them? Does everybody understand it? And if we're moving forward, let's go for it. Could we have done better over here or there? Yep. But how are we going to go get it now? Right?
Yeah.
That's what I want to be surrounded with. People that wake up every day that they're like, they don't have a CEO that's like, you don't hit a grand slam today, or you don't hit a grand slam this month. It's just not in my DNA. And that's maybe why I wouldn't, if I was in the environment at a young age thrown into that, probably could have assimilated into it and then performed really well at a publicly held company. But Lord's got me in my business here, and that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm fulfilled.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Again, going back to everything happening for a reason and people being in the right spot where they're supposed to be.
So something that I keep hearing, right, is that a big sort of part of your mantra is just serving the people around you, right? Because if you can build people up, like even the idea of not hiring superstars or maybe not searching for them, if they come, that's great. Yeah. I actually think that as I've continued talking with business owners and I'm still learning how to be a good team leader and stuff, that's really important for effective leaders to evaluate themselves first. You know, something you said is if we hire someone that is going to consistently put out singles and doubles, but we want them to get to that superstar level, well, are we setting the right expectations? Are we putting systems in place for them to learn and grow? Talk a little bit more about that, right? You know, having the mindset of, you know, finding a culture fit first and foremost, and then really pouring into people so that they can get to the place you want them to be, not expecting them to just be there.
Yeah, and I have to start off by saying it's that person. It's on that person, right? So if you do have the culture that you explain the culture that the person's entering into, is it a fit?
Right
out of the gate. That's why some of the things that we do, we actually, if the person's not working for a competitor, a long time ago started saying, why not during the interview process have them come and just audit and hang out?
Yeah.
Because they may think we're saying red and they're thinking blue.
Yeah.
Right. So that standpoint of is in terms of the culture, right? But go ahead. What was the real question though?
Yeah. So just talk a little bit more about what it means to, like, as an effective leader, to really build someone up and not have these expectations for them to be a superstar out the gate.
So we always ask up front, where do you see yourselves in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? What is it that is when you walk through those doors? I also say to everybody, do you remember when you were first hired, the first month you worked at Simcona? They're all looking around, where's he going with this? Think about that feeling you had. What was the feeling you had? I'm going to make a difference. People are going to know who I am. I always say that. What are people going to be saying about you 90 days after you're here? What are the things they're going to be saying about you? And I want to hear them reaffirm who they think they are.
Yeah.
But bringing that mindset of the place, if you go to a mindset of where are you, and this is why I believe in manifestation as well as things happening because of hard work and positioning, being in the right place and right time, the more you see that result and that feeling that you have. So if you go back to whatever that feeling you have where you're like, man, I don't want this to end. I'm either with my buddies, I'm at a game, I'm at a concert, I'm with my family, I'm with aunts, uncles, parents, that feeling almost like when you were a kid of, I don't want to leave this space, right?
Yeah.
That's what we should, in my opinion, should be like reaching for in our day-to-day work, right?
Yeah.
So that attitude that they have is really, it's about them. But the expectations you have to set them, and then you have to nurture them along the way. You can't just throw people out there. I don't believe in holding hands for a long time. If somebody has it, they know what the expectation is. But you have to come back and revisit. That's why we do one-to-ones with people. That's why I'm very sincere, and it should be authentic one-to-ones with team players or who report directly to you or not. Really is their time. If they want to go through the block and tackle stuff, I'll let people do that all day long that report to me.
Sure.
From time to time, I'll remind them and say, you understand this hour and a half that we have together? You don't need to tell me about how many orders that we got, the quotes that we're working on. This is about you and me, and where do you see yourself? What do you need to grow as a leader, as a mentor? That's why we do 360s. So we do a 360 on the management. We do 360s on managers, right? So that it's the company. And that has to come through authentic as well. Because if your employee base thinks, are you just doing this? And if I'm honest, am I going to get classified as something? So we try to do it as blind as possible and then come back with the findings. And actually, there are certain things. If we can act on 30% of what they want us to do, that's still far more than a lot of companies are even thinking about.
100%.
And then we do a net promoter score, not just for our customers and our suppliers, we do a net promoter score for ourselves, right? And we do that, and that's an investment. So I believe as a CEO, my job is not only set the vision, right? And as one CEO once said, job is to set the vision, surround yourself with the right people, and get the hell out of the way, right? You can go to two extremes sometimes. You can't just not ever come in and get the hell out of the way. So I think it's more of what am I doing as a CEO after setting the vision, expectations on my senior team that reports to me, but what's tools am I investing in for them to grow? We have our teams with coaches, and my philosophy is for my senior team that reports to me, and then the other teams, I want them to have the same coach. That coach learns the DNA of the company. If I had seven different coaches for each of these individuals, think about that one. Now we got little mini camps setting up because those coaches aren't talking to each other all the time. If I have one qualified coach that understands and can learn the essence of our business, but really learns the DNA of our business. Now, if the three of us have the same coach, when we are on our one-to-ones, and it's all confidential, by the way, right? So some of the stuff cross-breeds, but she's able to say, I know who's BSing right now, and she can call it out.
She has all the context,
And she doesn't need to pull in reference points. She can just, in her own way.
Right.
And that's really, if I unplug that now, I'd have a revolt, I think, amongst my my team. And like in Journeys in Life, when I first started this, there was a woman that we worked with in 10 plus years and recently passed on because she got an illness. And we have, fortunately, another personality that was associated with her. So you're never going to replace that person. But just the gift of having a coach for those individuals, I can see it already. The fruits come out of that. So you really have to do, it's just not cut and dry. Like when you asked the question in 2000, these things all evolved for me to say, if I do that, how much quicker can I get this team working together? How many things can I unplug myself from if I make an investment in them outside of that? And sometimes that's tough for companies. They may not have the cash flow to be able to do that because we're not talking about $1,000 a year. We're talking a pretty large investment. However, I don't want to look at like cost avoidance, but I will tell you, once you put all those salaries together, soft costs, if you have issues that they're spending times on, you don't even know what that intangible cost is that to you, right? If I can help them grow, not only is it cost avoidance, it's what are the opportunities that they're going to collaborate and grow together with. You know what? Environments take the peaks and valleys. It's not a silver bullet. You got to work through it. And that's everybody be doing it, right?
Yeah. I want to take a kind of a pivot here. I love the mindset talk. I could talk that all day long.
Yeah. and I just share with you, and I'm good with it. My mindset significantly has been impacted after some of the things I've had to go through personally from my wife going through some things. And I believe a miracle happened, and then myself having something really, really bad happen to me, where it's really, I don't want to say if it woke me up, but it's made it. I put the contacts on. I put stronger contacts on. Now I see conversations, life in a totally new perspective, not different. It's enhanced. I have a second lease on life, even though I've had many things happen to me. What happened to me back at the end of last year was life-altering mentality, but also going a different way could have changed my life indefinitely, where all this effort and hard work and association with people and leading would have been nowhere near been able to been appreciated for the rest of my life, and I would have been a burden on people. I was paralyzed and almost had my life after a fall. But what it's done is made me really appreciate all the way down, like I said before, conversations like this. Like in an instant, your life can change.
Yeah.
And I'm still passionate about what I do. I still love the things I'm in. I still have the eye of the tiger type of thing, but I have a different eye of passion. And there is a little bit more compassion in there, but it's also of understanding, is it really that big of a deal? Are you going to complain about this? And when I catch myself going into that, which I hope I never lose this feeling, I go right back to that instant when I was totally compromised and knew that there was a finality. And spiritually something happened, but, whether we go there or not, it has really affected me to be able to say, there was a time where when you asked me about this, I would have found a way, not because I enjoy your company. I actually like hanging with you guys, but I would have found a reason why. Is that the best use of my time? I should be doing this over here and doing this and doing this. Now, I'm not a yes man in terms like Jim Carrey in the movie Yes Man. I never saw it, but it does come into my thought of like, you need to seize the opportunity here to go hang. You need to do this because if you don't, you're going to miss a blessing here, and you're going to miss an opportunity for growth. Age is a fact, is a number. I believe also we're in a really cool time with AI, the development, how it's going to affect medicine. And for us to be able to have this conversation 25 years from now and still be in the same kind of physical and mental state, I believe it's doable.
Yeah.
Right.
First of all, I want to thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. I appreciate, because I can relate to it, not on such a huge level like what you've been through, but I've been going through health struggles myself over the last year. And the part that really hit home with me, what you just said, is it completely changes your perspective on problems and issues that just don't matter, because your threshold of understanding how dark things can get very quickly is up here. And all of a sudden, all the things that go on in daily life that annoy you, they for me, they no longer annoy me, because I have this new outlook of, I'm just grateful to not be in extreme pain right now and just have another day where I'm breathing. And is like cliche and whatever that can sound, it's the truth that when bad things happen to us, it really does. There always is a bright side to any dark situation. Yeah. And when people used to say that to me, I'm like, whatever, like times are hard sometimes, and they're just hard. But as I'm working my way through my health issues still right now, and Carter and the whole team can attest to it, it's been a fucking, and excuse my language, it's been a fucking struggle. And to day by day work through it, and I feel like I'm becoming a new person every day. So just, Mark, thank you for sharing that, because that was huge.
I think, unfortunately or fortunately, I think it's, I firmly believe if you believe in God, God only gives people certain things that they can handle, right? And then if they can't handle certain things, he surrounds them with certain people that come in out of your life for seasons, right? And you can talk about, there's a lot of cats that have drawn that stick that just doesn't seem like life is there, and that's between them and what they're going through. And I don't know if that's a way of him knocking on certain doors. But you know what? I empathize with, because there are individuals that just don't seem to get a break, health-wise, work-wise, life-wise, right? The health thing is interesting because you could go dark, and I think that's where the inner spirit of yourself is where you're going to be like, okay, am I going to do this? And I'm not on my own. I feel for people that, and that's the thing about whether it's blind faith, whether we're right or we're wrong, believing in a creator that is there and is, in essence, you're part of that creator, helps to get through. So it's the intangibles. That's called faith, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if you have faith in human beings, why is it that aren't perfect? Why is it wrong for you to have faith in something to pull you through your trials, right? And I do believe everything we go through is for growth, and I took that, and it was tough over the past, because I've had some stuff happen to me a lot, but this one was one where I'm still in pain today, but I'm walking. I have friends that wish they had my problems, right? So what am I doing with that? I'm going to do wherever he wants me to go with the messaging on it. I was prepared to be in a wheelchair and be a testament, and through a miracle, something happened. I left my body. So I know that I was either going to go or stay. But that's why it was very real to me. It wasn't my brain chemically playing games with my head and stuff like that. So I'm going to use it. And what you should consider doing, and as well as other people, is that what are you doing with that opportunity now that you've given? You can actually say to whomever you come in contact with that is going through it, I understand. We can understand what someone's going through by hearing them, but you can't really understand until you live it. And that's not a bad thing. So I never get upset. And I always was younger, and I always say, how can that person understand that that person just told them a story about what happened to them? They didn't even live that, but they're trying to be compassionate, right? But until you really live something, you really can't understand what that person has gone through unless you did yourself to some form or fashion. I think also it changes you as a person. You have to look at it for the good. So regardless of the dips, the valleys, and the peaks that we have to use those valleys on inspiring other people. We don't motivate anybody. They motivate themselves.
Yeah.
It's how am I inspiring people that I work with or people that I'm around and my children. I'm blessed to have 3 really cool people in my life that my wife basically raised. She did the heavy lifting. But how am I inspiring them by living the life? Now, going through what I'm going through, you can talk about it, but you don't want to be this martyr because then it starts to come off self-fulfilling. So there's going to be times that I know I'm going to be introduced to some people that I'm going to be able to help because of what I went through. And now I have to put my activities, not just my money, but my activities and my energies behind that, behind my words.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to it. That's why I view things totally differently. And that's why I think that it's an opportunity when you go through some of these things to be able to use that with people that you interact with, because that's where the authenticity comes from.
Yes.
Right? You can't make that stuff up when you've lived it.
Yeah.
Amen, bro. I got goosebumps right now.
The other thing too is that you never discount the people that are coming in and out of your life. There's so many people I've met by being in the music industry that I wish could understand. There are people that you can just be you with if they're not in your inner circle, and that's one thing I've noticed. There's so many gifted people that are guarded, that have been through some things, but because of the arena that they're in and in the entertainment business, whether it's acting, whether it's music, anything, I noticed that there's this guard that they put around them. And that's unfortunate, right? Now, I'm sure they have their family and everything, but when you come into a new town or whatever, who's there just wanting to talk to you because you're a celebrity?
Got to put the mask on. And,
right? So they're like, yeah, I'm not going to open up to these people. So that's what I do enjoy is going through all these experiences, being able to, and it doesn't bother me, especially because I know life is life now. Just enjoy every day. If a person doesn't embrace you, whether it's a customer, whether it's somebody in the industry, in the music industry, or a coworker, whatever, you have to acknowledge that there's something that's blocking them. Don't take it personal.
Yep.
If you're not being a jerk and you're not using them, don't take it personal that somebody's not gravitating towards you.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Man.
Just go with the flow of there's something there. I'm good with me.
Yeah.
Right? And you move on. Don't let it eat away at you.
Yeah, I've always heard, when you talk about interacting with people and developing relationships, if you can stay true to who you are, right? And I think a lot of it, when you do have that faith in a creator, it can really be foundational.
Yeah.
It can be driven in something concrete. But that a lot of times how people react to you, if you're acting genuine and authentic, it's a reflection of them, right? So if somebody doesn't want to follow you in your team and business, or they don't want to develop a relationship with you, if you're acting who you know you are, you just can't take it personal.
It doesn't matter.
That's life, you know?
Yeah. And that's and unfortunately some of the things that have happened in the last, let's call it 8 years, and is tough, especially on younger generation of like, have we lost a little bit of the foundation of who we are as society and a country? If you go to some other countries, some of the things that are going on, yes, the world has become smaller. So because of technology, the same little things are popping up and different things.
Right.
But there's something that we have here in this country that I don't want us to be on the verge of losing, and it's that authenticity of what does each ethnicity in their culture back from where they immigrated from have that made this country so special. Those cultures, those traditions, those different things. And a lot of it stemmed from a faith.
Yeah.
Okay. And a faith in whether it was any kind of faith from all around the world, but that faith was bringing this consistency of accountability, of love. The faith that I have is, at the end of the day, it's really about how we're loving one another. Okay. And you have all the doctrine of it, but at the end of the day, there's different pathways to everlasting life. But the consistency and the basis of it is really loving one another and giving of oneself.
For sure.
You get into that mentality, which is sometimes hard to get into, but once you do, not to associate it I'll associate it with eating donuts. Okay, like if you're not supposed to eat donuts because of the sugar, well, you eat one donut or a potato chip. How can you just eat one? The same thing happens we really start to sit down. What bothers me is the way I was brought up, I think, gives me a skewed view of why can't people just talk to each other.
Sure.
Because when I see the different things, whether it's, and I have to understand this, right? I have to remember to pull myself out of the parade. When I see the conversations of racism and different things, the way I was raised, that never even came up in my family. So maybe it's skewed because I was in the heart of it, from where my father started his business and whatever, and was embraced. But there was never any dialogue of that. So when I get in conversations with friends that have the opposite view of things, I look at it and go, maybe I'm not maybe I can't understand because I was never, I was exposed to it at an older age. But as a younger age, when I got my foundation, I don't care if you're from Mars, as long as are you someone that I can talk to and somebody I want to be with.
See, that's self-awareness right there. I love that. Cultivated that through your business as well.
And I did. And I made a point all the way to conversations I had with my wife when we were engaged. I said, this is what I believe in. These are the things. So I should probably upset with me for saying this. I said, I need you to understand something about me is that when we have kids, this is 36 years ago, when we have kids, I just want to let you know, I don't really care about, I want a lifestyle that my father, who came from nothing, didn't ever want us to need anything, but I don't care about the money, whoever our kids end up with, if they do end up with anybody. I don't care about the color of their skin. Would I want them to be in our faith? Yeah, but that is still not going to be. I said, so I need you to know that, because if that's a problem, we need to talk right now.
Yeah.
And fortunately, she said, why would you even need to bring it up? Of course, I feel the same way, because I'd rather have my children with someone that treats them like a king or a queen, doesn't mess with them physically or mentally. I don't care about the color of their skin. I can have somebody be the exact faith, exact ethnicity, exact everything, yet mentally mess with them or physically mess with them. Yep. To me, that's why,
it's worse,
right?
Yeah.
So I've always carried that with me, and so that's probably why I'm skewed and not the norm for that. But that's the one thing I do wish, talking about what you were originally talking about, is that really coming to be able to do this and even disagree.
Yeah,
I think we should be able to disagree but not hate each other. It's become so polarized.
Yeah.
And I think that we're the only ones that can change it. You guys are the ones that can change it, and the people younger than you.
Yeah.
Right? So that mentality has to come back of, not being growing up Italian. You should take it outside and finish each other off so that then we can go in and eat dinner together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I disagree with everything you've said so far. And just like the fact that we can still smile and laugh. No.
Well, it's funny because when, we talk about this in our leadership meetings too. Carter disagrees a lot, and it's just how he is by nature. But the thing is, I appreciate that so much, because if I'm surrounded by yes men, first of all, we're not getting anywhere. And that debate, Carter has actually allowed me, because I'm very I'm a people pleaser. I like to make people happy, and oftentimes I just agree with people for the sake of agreeing. Spending more time with Carter has started to chip away at that part of me where it's like, no, it's okay to like push back at people sometimes and tell them how you actually feel. And then you have, to your point, that open dialogue, and that's how things get done, and that's how progress gets made.
Yeah. You don't want to, if you always agree on everything, we're never going to grow.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's certain things to disagree, just to disagree, to get under somebody's skin.
I think that's what he was saying. I do. And you know what?
I mean, that's
Sometimes.
that's
No,
friendship
I know.
sometimes, just to break stones, right?
Yeah.
But that's, again, what I try to have us avoid being brought into our culture. If you're having a bad day, okay, just acknowledge that. There's a lot of things that you learn along the way, emotional intelligence, right? There's something to be said about that. If you keep saying to me, Mark, the blue sports coat, don't wear that in my office because it puts me in a mindset. It reminds me of the time I was in the alley and a guy beat the snot out of me and he had a blue thing on. So we're never going to be in the right frame of mind. Now I'm going totally to the extreme, but that's what emotional intelligence is, to be able to understand, I know what triggers certain people after being with them. Why would I want to go trigger them out of the gate if I'm having a bad day or they're having a bad day? Because at the end of the day, we're coming through the front doors to work for the customer that we need in order to put food on the table, you know what I mean? Or fulfill ourselves. So to me, it's more of I need to understand my environment, read the room type of thing, as funny as that may sound. You learn to really read the room. You actually will be the last person to talk most of the time. Unfortunately for me, I find myself, I always say, I'm not going to talk in this meeting, I'm not going to do this, but I don't do it out of here myself. It's like, okay, am I going to have a chance to be able to talk to these guys, right? And that's a growing, no matter where you are in your career, to be able to do that, I think is important. But we talked about being able to just, if you disagree, that's awesome.
Yeah.
At least I know where you stand.
Yeah. I was kidding, by the way. But
No, but I mean, even if you did, it's like, okay, but I still like hanging with you.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's people like when you can be honest like that too, right? You're not putting up a front. That's the thing I think in business that I've noticed. Like I ask these people, like mentors, I guess. You being on the show, that's like a mentor for me to learn from, right? Yeah. But the thing that I always notice, and something that Cam has really instilled in me and working with Keegan, is that you have to be 100% authentic, because clients, whether it's a sales call or your team members that are looking up to you, if you try to put on a front and act like somebody you're not, people have a BS meter that is so much better than people think. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think in times of conflict, or times in terms of whether it's a chaotic situation, you may internally be freaking out, but knowing whether you're a leader or you're not, because that's where you emerge as a leader in the situation. Are you like this? Now, if the place is burning down and you're like, okay, everything's gonna be okay, let's just have a couple sips of water, you'd be like, no, we're getting out of here because there's only one exit or something, like, right?
Right.
But the more you take that breath mentally to go, okay, in this situation right now, is it going to be really good for me to go off? Is it going to be really good for me to start going, oh my God, we got to do this, got to do that, or point fingers? Sit back and you start to realize it's okay to say, well, what do you think we should do? Right? Especially if you've given the responsibility to somebody versus giving them all the answers. Right?
I love that point you just made, because I actually make this analogy. You want to be like this right here. You want to be, no matter what the temperature is, cold or hot on the outside, you stay even-keeled. And to your point, sometimes it's hard if the house is burning down, but your team has to look up to that energy. And even if you're feeling anxious and overwhelmed, like going back to emotional intelligence, learn how to deal with that. And
and you have to remember to take care of yourself too. And I'll give you an example. You may be very calm in situations where it's in business, or there could be something physically going on with some member of the family where you're that rock. Well, what'll happen is, just like a car accident, right? There's the initial accident, you don't feel anything, and then 24 hours later, you wake up in the morning and your body is like, what just happened? I can't move. The same thing can happen to you emotionally and mentally, where you have to remember to take care of you and go, okay, look, I just went through a lot. I was the rock. I was the calm one in this one. Do I need to make sure, is there anything I need to make sure to take care of myself? Because am I going to have in 2 weeks, this meltdown where I don't know where it's coming from. You know, during COVID, I had routine. We were considered an essential business and all that stuff, but what we had done is prepared because I felt something was coming. Everybody started working from home. We had them all set up, other than the warehouse and manufacturing. So I was in a 30,000 square foot building with 4 other people for how many months, year, right?
Yep.
So I had routine. I was getting up. I was going to work. Yeah, we're doing our meetings via Teams and everything and Zoom at the time. Do you know when it hit me? Because a lot of people were having the disassociate, and I feel for the children, right? That you can say, well, it was only a 2. Yeah, well, you try to mess with yourself for 2 years and put yourself on an island and see what that's like, right? But people were having a hard time with it at my own company in their personal lives because of not having that routine, because they were staying home. At first, it's a novelty, right? You're like, oh, man, I'm home. I can do this. I can do that. I can still do work, right? But confine yourself into, your own little situation, your cell, right? When it hit me was when everyone came back. I didn't realize what happened mentally to me. It was about 6 months after we all came back and everybody was back. I was like feeling, I didn't even know how to explain it. And I finally went to myself. I was like, oh my God, it's because everybody's back now. You were used to just 4 people in this building for almost a year and a half, right? Yeah. So everybody goes through experiences. That's why I say you got to take care of yourself as a leader, as a coworker. If you're someone that people gravitate toward because you handle things, you got to remember what's the byproduct of what's you've just went through.
Yeah, 1,000%. I know we're running out of time here. You said you have a meeting at 2:00?
No, I can be late.
Okay. All right.
Well, what time is it?
It's 1:45 right now.
I need to check my watch because I might have to be somewhere at 2.
Okay, so we're gonna.
But I can be a little late.
Okay. Real quick, I know we didn't get to
I
talk
haven't
about
got
it.
to the part where I want to take over the world.
Oh, okay.
Talk about the jazz. All right, Mark. Talk about the Jazz Fest very quick. Just what you've done, what you've built it to, and just plug it away because that's what I wanted to.
So again, people coming out of your life for a reason. I believe I'm still trying to figure out why I'm here, walking this earth. I believe I've been gifted with so many things to not take for granted. And I've always supported the arts. I have 2 parents that were in our house when I was a little kid growing up. I just remember, why are my parents always in the kitchen? My father came from nothing, but in this small kitchen, dancing all the time. And it was all the way from Frank to, to more modern music and stuff like that. Frank Sinatra. And it's always been around me. And so whether it's education through scholarships or the music and different things, helping some friends with production, I've always been around music. And started to pick the horn up and started playing and teaching myself. And then my business partner came into my life in the year 2001-ish. And I was underwriting some scholarships, some concerts that were there. And he actually came into town as part of an event, John Nugent. And we got to put together to talk about some stuff. And I really didn't meet him first. I went through an agency that said, you're interested in being a sponsor and stuff like that. At the end of the day, I wanted to talk to him because through certain dialogue, I still wasn't sure about what is this event. And I had him over the house for pasta. I asked my wife is an unbelievable cook. Usually when people come in from out of town, I don't want them to eat alone or just hang out in their hotel room, just the way I am. And I usually give her like 48 hours notice or more. I gave her like 4 hours notice. I thought she was going to kill me. And I had him over. We had a couple bottles of wine, sat at the table, talked about his concept of this. And I looked at him and I said, okay, I wasn't going to be a sponsor. I'll be a sponsor. But at the end of this first year, I want to talk about having 50% ownership of this. And he looked at me like, kind of like, is this guy for real type of thing. We share the same spirit of the music, America's true art form, jazz, even though there's different genres of jazz that we have in the festival, and there's all other genres of music to get people to come downtown. But we are like 2 brothers from another mother. We're actually almost the exact same age in 2 months, 1 month apart. But the love for the music and the love for the integrity of the music, the love for organizing something, and you're not perfect, but trying to do it as perfect as possible and surround yourself with a team, it's just evolved. And after year 5 is when we really knew, okay, there's momentum here. And the beautiful thing is, this is my hometown. We've been offered to go into other cities and do things, and chose to stay here and do things. And the reception is written itself out.
Clearly.
I mean, and I've met some really wonderful people along the way. We have a fantastic team that's been with us now for almost 20 years, all the way from production to logistics to PR, all the different things that we do as a team behind the scenes that you don't see, that goes along with the programming. I believe we have we have a Club Pass series, we have a free concert series, we have a ticketed series in the Eastman, we have an educational part of it and workshops, we have the scholarship and an endowment that we started. So it's just a really good feeling, and I think it's a stepping stone for me to do more with giving back. I'm just trying to figure out where that road goes.
Sure. Yeah.
But now we've brought in second gen type of aspect to the energies of it. Some of the people that have been recipients of our scholarship are now working with us, running some other organizations here, arts organizations here in Rochester. The other thing that I'm really proud of is that we outsource almost 90% of it locally of what we do. All the organizations that we surround ourselves, that's economic impact for
beautiful.
them.
It's beautiful.
And then what happens with the hotels and the different things that are going on, there's a lot of business to business. I use it at Simcona to bring people in from out of town, suppliers and customers. We work during the day, and then my team brings them downtown, and we just, it's a wonderful thing. And just to see people who have gotten to know each other over the last 20 plus years, we had people getting engaged. We have had people getting married because of it. I've seen families grow from it. We've had people come and go. Unfortunately, that's what happens in a 2-decade period. Yeah. And it's just it's a vibe of love in terms of the music. I call it a high-end buffet of artistic music, all you can listen to, not eat, but all your ears are your palate when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And it's just it's an awesome thing that we got going on here. We have, we really have a well-rounded support of government support, corporate support, and then through passes and ticket sales. And it's just, it's something that really touches my soul in terms of really knowing, okay, I am supposed to be involved in this, and now what does he want me to do with that? And I don't know. I'm just, maybe certain things like I shared with you happened in my life to kind of nudge me along to go, I hear what you're saying. You say it a lot to people, but I'm going to have to pave the way a little bit. And if these are the things that happen, they happen. So, artistically, my partner's a really gifted man, great tenor player. I learned a lot from him, giving me the confidence to start getting on the play. There's people that are locally professionals here that we have, they're not diamonds in the rough. They're right in front of us, that we need to appreciate them as much as possible when they're playing out at gigs. Because some of these cats travel all over the world. They just make Rochester their home. But then the people that we bring in from all over the world that we're exposing Rochester to, that you'd have to fly to New York, you'd have to fly to Chicago, you'd have to fly to San Francisco, Kansas City, all over the world, to Europe to see some of these performers play. And that, you're getting it all for a club pass that comes out to about $14 a show. So
Crazy.
Right here in the ROC, baby.
So, and again, it's a collective effort. It's not just these two guys, right? We do believe in treating the musicians with respect, and not that they're just the help. They're just the product. They're not. They're human beings that are so talented. And especially now, today with AI emerging, live music and the real thing is really where the value, in my opinion, is going to be at. Now, just like in anything with AI, how are you going to use it to enhance your situation and your relevance? There are some artists that are so gifted that are understanding, and some of the younger cats, but some of the guys my age are really understanding it. How am I going to use this in order to enhance my presence in a live performance? Right?
Yeah.
Because synthetically on this screen here, you're going to be able to really go, is that him or is it AI? Something else? Yeah. Right? But when you see live music,
can't fake it.
Okay, we're already using enhancements of AI for sound manipulation and different things like that. But it's still the human being with the human being input.
For now.
Right. And there will be.
There may be.
Because it's treating itself exponentially. Within every 48 hours, AI is teaching itself in certain sectors.
Oh, it's insane.
Where you if you try to put your mind around, you'll flip out. So to me, it's here to stay. I think we should embrace it as the positiveness of it. Sure, there's a negative part of it. And it's really going to come down to who's going to teach AI the ethics, right?
Can you
Because
teach
the
AI
three of
the
us could have a
ethics?
different view of ethics.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know if it's teachable.
Well, listen,
So-
we could sit here for
It's
hours.
influential. It's influential. We're the ones that are influencing. Remember, we were the data in and we were helping. Now it's teaching itself. It's like a child.
Yeah.
A child is the most innocent. It's a sponge. The child is, that little boy or little girl is a sponge listening to everything that you're saying. So if you're the first form of input and then you come in and you start talking to me, I'm going to start to take on what's right. The brain, remember, it believes everything when it first input. It's about how we digest it and diversify it to say, is that really true or not? Right?
Yeah.
Same thing, in my opinion, with AI. But as it starts to teach itself, if it ever can teach itself empathy, that's the part where I'm going to say, okay, look, I think I want to be somewhere else when that happens. I don't want to be that generation that's not 100% human.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's wild times, and we could sit here. We could do a
We
whole
just went
nother.
off on a tangent.
It's a discussion for another day, is what I'm saying, because I know you got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Mark, I just want to say thank you so much for opening up on the show today, and congratulations on the growth over the years. I think I read the statistics on the website. It was 15,000 people, and now over 200,000 at the
man.
Jazz Fest these days.
It's. I'm telling you, I pinch myself because I'm part of it.
Yeah.
And I say to people all the time, this is our festival. There may be people that own it and run it and take responsibility, but it's Rochester's own festival.
It is Rochester's, but at the same time, my buddy, our mutual friend John Warda, Dawn's brother-in-law, was telling me, you don't understand the amount of work and personal money that Mark and his partner put into to make the event possible. So thank you for doing that. And I look forward to continuing to watch it grow.
Yeah.
And I know Carter does too. He's a big jazz fan. Before we wrap up here, I always ask guests this question. If you could go back in time and tell your 20-year-old self a piece of advice, some wisdom, what would that be?
Take all the criticism given to you as it's constructive and somebody who actually cares about you. The only reason they're saying what they're saying is because they care. If they didn't, they wouldn't say a word to you, because they see something in you that can flourish, and they listen to them because they're not picking on you. They actually, if they didn't care, they wouldn't talk, and they see something in you that you can bring, and you're going to have a positive effect, whether it's in the business you work in or your life. So just listen. You can take it personal, but take it as a gift that someone is talking to you, and it's not out of jealousy, it's not out of envy. If someone is truly going out of their way to say, look, you're either going to run into the wall, here's what you're doing, or here's what you should think about doing, take that as a free advice, a gift that someone's giving you because they care.
Right on, man. Mark,
Perfect. Yeah.
thank you, man, for being here. And guys, I hope you found this episode valuable. If you did, please share it with a friend. Shares, likes, subscribes. It helps the show grow. It helps us reach more aspiring entrepreneurs and get more great guests like Mark on the show. So thank you, as always, for tuning in, and we will catch you in the next episode. Peace.